Welcome to the Catholic Champion Show. Today is the feast day of Our Lady of Champion. I'm your host, John Yep, co-host Michael Hichborn. Today we will be talking about the historic Butler rally, the hurricanes going on in North Carolina and Florida and their effects on the elections, and Melania's new book. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome to the show. It is the feast day of Our Lady of Champion. That is where we get our name, the show, Catholic Champion. And Catholic for Catholics finds our roots there in a powerful way to that apparition, which is the only one approved by Holy Mother Church here in continental United States. We're going to close with the words of Mary of that special moment, 1859, when she appeared to a fairly young lady in northern Wisconsin. But Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there. How about yourself?
Got 4 more weeks left. It's crunch time, and I got a lot of worries in some ways and a lot of hope in another. And let's talk about why. So Trump on Saturday, he does the remarkable. Did you get the chance to see the actual rally that he was in Butler or no?
I did. I watched it live. Yeah.
So powerful. So he goes back, as he said he would, the I shall return moment of Douglas MacArthur, right? And he goes back to Butler in the Trump style way, which has made him everything that he is, the showman and all that's good and it's bad. And he just put on it was a powerful moment. It was not about, even though he's a showman, you could say, or an actor, it wasn't about himself. He made it about the American people. He made it about the victims. And there were some huge, very touching moments there. And I highly recommend Americans watch that rally, at least the key parts of it, because there's a lot that it's a historic moment. Truly it is in our nation's history, in the history of politics in this country, about what it means. Favorite moments from the rally? Go.
Well, the first thing that caught my attention was the fact that there were snipers on the sloped roofs.
No, I know.
Or too steep for
well, you know why? It was no longer hot. See, back in July it was too hot, so now it's cooled off. So thank God for that, right?
Yeah. Thank goodness. But I mean, obviously, my favorite moment has to be when Trump got up there. The bell tolled, and he said, "We're going to take a moment of silence," because it was the very minute that shots rang out there in Butler, Pennsylvania. He asked for a moment of silence. The bell tolled, and then immediately they had an opera singer singing the Ave Maria.
6:11 p.m. exact moment. And as you mentioned, everyone stopped, and the song was played, Ave Maria. I mean, I was in shock when I heard that. I was coming home from church, and someone had told me, didn't watch it live, but about that moment, and chills up the spines when we saw those. And people, I don't know everything behind the scenes about who chose that song and why. I am going to hypothesize, though. I've been to Mar-a-Lago a few times for public events, private events as well. The president's been around, and even on the private events, when it's just a regular dinner at Mar-a-Lago, when people are just eating there, and the president has a deep love for music, right? And he, many times he just literally controls the music of the night for all the guests there, right? He literally has the iPad and he's choosing the songs, right? And it's big, it's powerful for him. He follows it. Even on the video that I'm blanking on the name, when he did the golfing challenge with that star, and he was the one choosing he was DJ Trump. Right. Yeah. So I'm gonna hypothesize that Ave Maria, that he chose that song specifically himself. It was not staff member or whatever, but it was him. He chose it. And I think even one of his Truth Social posts, he referenced the fact that the bells that you hear in that song are from Notre Dame Cathedral. Did you know that, Michael?
Okay. Oh, I
Yeah,
missed that part.
so that's
Wow.
part of the recording for whoever planned that. So they're from Notre Dame, the cathedral that's being rebuilt after it was burned by, we still don't know who, along with hundreds of other churches across Europe. So it's real powerful to hear those. Everybody froze in silence, right? And I think a lot of us had, tears in our eyes, and to a certain degree, for what it meant.
Well, sure, and, the Ave Maria always brings tears to my eyes anyway because it's such an absolutely beautiful prayer song, that it's hard not to be moved by it. But the thing I found fascinating is that as he was standing up there, he called for a moment of silence and then produced a prayer. So it's very it's there was no disconnect there. He was very clearly offering this not just as a moment of silence, but was truly intending it to be a prayer. It was a prayerful moment. And it was he didn't say it. He didn't say this part out loud, but I think very honestly, it was a prayer of gratitude and a
Mm-hmm.
recognition that, hey, this wasn't just happenstance that I survived a sniper's bullet. This was something that was directed by the hand of God, and you know, by acknowledging the mother of God in that moment. And of course, he's done this. He wished Our Lady a happy birthday. He posted the Saint Michael prayer on the feast of Saint Michael. So there is something to what is going on here. And the fact that he played the Ave Maria at that moment after calling for a moment of silence, he didn't say prayer, but it was very, very clearly a prayer at that moment. And that I think is what was the most touching element of it, was that it was a prayer of thanksgiving.
Hmm. Completely agree there. And I'm going to link it to a message that Father Dave Nix put out the other day, talking about the Trump post July 13th, first round 1 assassination, round 2 assassination attempt, September 15th in Mar-a-Lago. The Trump after those two is different. Any man who's faced with his own mortality in such a direct way, it's very hard for them to remain unchanged. And there's a sense that, I think he has a greater understanding of God in his life. And that bodes very, very well, right? We need that, right? We need our leaders to have that connection to God. And this is by the way, let you guys decide. Michael, you can opine here too on what you think about this. So we on the Friday before we released that video, where we showed that, again, the statue of the closest church to Butler, Pennsylvania, okay, is like maybe 3 minutes away by car at the very most. It's St. Conrad Church, and there's an outdoor grotto of Our Lady of Fatima, and the statue, literally, like I someone told me about this, but we double checked it to make sure like the statue's eyes were actually in the direction. But there's a direct line. You can watch the video on our page, and it was looking right at President Trump on the July day, direct line of sight. It's and of course the next closest church nearby is St. Michael's, the Archangel's Church, right? We had no knowledge of that when we decided to go on this massive St. Michael billboard campaign. So some strange, ironic connections there. People have already mentioned the connection with Fatima and July 13th, when the anniversary of the apparition of Fatima, and how she may have had a role in sparing his life. Thoughts on that, Michael?
Well, the Hail Holy Queen in the middle of the prayer says, "Turn then, most gracious advocate, thine eyes of mercy toward us." So if we are going to be looking at Our Lady, looking at, it's a statue. We're not idolaters, it is a statue, but there is something symbolic to be said about Our Lady's gaze being upon that particular moment. There's a story from Our Lady of Lourdes when Bernadette Soubirous was down in the grotto, and the Gave River started to overflow. There was a surge of water. It was building. It was swelling. It was threatening actually to flood into the little grotto area. And what Saint Bernadette said, she heard demonic voices and growls, and they were saying, "Get out!" They were just urging her to depart the grotto. And she looked up at Our Lady, and she said, "All Our Lady did was glance towards the Gav River. And immediately the demonic voices ceased and the river went down. The waters started to recede. So if all it takes is a glance from Our Lady in that moment to put an end to the demonic voices, to put an end to the swelling and the threatening of the Gav River, well, in a similar respect, can't we say that when we pray, turn then, most gracious Virgin Mary, thine eyes of mercy toward us, that we can truly expect that as she does that, the demonic forces depart. And I think what you're talking about here is what happened in this particular instance.
Very biblical, everything you're talking about. This is not some crazy Catholic statue stuff, superstition. Biblical, we've had Acts of the Apostles, right? Peter and John, the crippled man outside the temple that just wanted the shadow to pass by. And that was enough for them to get healed. And they were healed, right? Obviously, Christ, all grace comes through our Lord, and we have a lot of non-Catholics who follow us. So you have to understand what we're talking about here. But he does use instruments, Peter, John, Mary, and even flawed instruments were imperfect, right? So who knows? Who really knows? I do know that I think that God is working right now in this election. But I want to get to, okay, great. So you might be like a skeptic out there. Okay, great. So he plays Ave Maria. Wonderful. What about his wife? We get that a lot. What's going on? What about the book? We'll talk about the book in a little bit. But something that's concerning for me, I told you that I was hopeful and I was also concerned. So 4 weeks throughout the election, well, you would think that this Ave Maria and all that kind of stuff, the move, the Michael Post, et cetera, is going to give new enthusiasm into Christian voters across the land. That doesn't seem to be the case. Okay. So article published by someone I know, Dr. George Barna from the Christian Cultural Research Center at Arizona Christian University. He basically laid out something that said, look, like he was flashing the red light button that 4 weeks before the election, the latest polls show that, Michael, there are 104 million Christian voters who are not planning on voting this election. Okay. Now let's break that number down. 104 million. That's roughly 46 million Protestants, church going. So 46 million Protestant church going. Okay. Because, a lot of people say they're Christian, but they don't go to church. Fine. Okay. At least just take the church going people. 46 million Protestants. How many Catholics? 19 million. 19 million Catholic church going people, Americans, do not plan on voting in this 2024 election. People have got to understand what kind of effect it's going to have on the race itself. Devastating. Comments on those numbers, Michael?
Well, they are difficult numbers. One thing that we have to remember is that there are 333 million people in the United States. Roughly 161 million of those people are voters. So what we're looking at is a very large number. You said 104 million are planning not to vote.
104 million Christian voters.
Yeah, so that's a very sizable number of people that would be planning not to vote. I don't know that I believe those numbers though. If we're talking about 161 million voters and about 75% of them are saying, you know what, I'm out, I'm not voting, that those numbers don't really quite work. Maybe it's sometimes with polling, what they do is they build a statistic. They say, okay, we've got this sample size, which is a certain percentage of the larger population or a certain percentage. It's not like they got 104 million people to say we're not voting. So I think a lot of it has to do with sample size. I'm not so sure I believe those numbers.
Fair, yeah, point well taken. You do have to think, though, Trump even references the other day in one of his rallies. He was talking about the fact that, look, the two groups of people that do not vote for whatever reason are gun owners and Christians. Even looking at past elections, right? So this is obviously in view of coming up in November in the voting and who's saying what. But Statistically, historically, I don't know, man. I mean, I think it's for whatever reason. Well, actually, I do want to get to the reasons. Okay, maybe this will help justify my position, which you're pushing back on justifiably, right? So, why? What? Well, let me ask you: what do you think the number one reason, at least society here, why they're saying they're not going to vote?
Well, if we're, even if we don't believe the numbers, let's just say there is a very large percentage of people who are saying they're not going to vote, specifically Christians.
Right.
Why would they not vote? And the reason, I think, has to do with the fact that Kamala Harris is radically pro-abortion. She's radically in the tank for the LGBTQ plus whatever movement. She's radically in the tank for allowing immigrants to come across into this country and push a breed of socialism. Donald Trump, on the other hand, for those who are primarily socially conservative, he's softer on those issues, but it's not like he's against them. He's, softer on abortion, but he's not going to ban it. And he's made it very clear he wouldn't do a national ban. He actually came forward and said, look, I'm the first US president that was for same-sex marriage before he was elected. So those are difficult positions for any Christian to vote for, even though he's very clearly by far the much better choice for any Christian of any stripe to vote for over Kamala Harris. The real concern is that because he's not anti those positions, that the Christians themselves say, well, I got pro-abortion and pro-LGBT people on either side, so what's the point? And that's the concern. That's what he needs to address if he's going to start courting truly the Christian vote and say, look, I hear you and I understand you, and let's have that conversation instead of being firm and saying I would never sign a national abortion ban, or I would never ban same-sex marriage. That those hardline positions on those issues is going to cause him trouble.
So that's my gut reaction to. Okay, so it's kind of like, okay, maybe our side has been, neutral, I guess is the kind word to say it on some of these life issues, cultural issues, same-sex marriage, abortion, stuff like that. So that's probably why people are okay, whatever. You'd think that, and maybe that is the case. Again, I'm gonna do at least what this article says, okay? And this is George Barna. I mean, this guy's very experienced. He's got a huge name, right? And this is what he says. The reasons people are not going to vote, 68% said it's just lack of interest in politics. Another 50%, 57%, why one of the reasons they're not voting is disliking all major candidates. 52% says my vote will make a difference. And then the last category, 48%, express concern over election rigging. Okay. So just basically 70% of those, they're like, why? My vote doesn't even matter. Okay. So let's go to the abortion thing though. Okay. According to this, it says that only 1% of church-going Christians say that the abortion issue is something that important for them, and that would actually determine who they vote for.
Oh, that's pretty sad. That's actually pretty sad.
It seems way too low. I would think right?
I agree. I don't think that's, again, the numbers just don't seem to jive. I do think that voter integrity is definitely a factor. I think it's probably, and it may very well be a larger factor than concern for the social issues in whether somebody votes or not, because a lot of times, and this is what the communists do, right? They demoralize. One of the ways to destabilize a country is to demoralize the population. What does that mean? It means you get them to lose confidence in the process. You get them to lose confidence in leadership. You get them to lose confidence in the integrity of their country itself. So if you're demoralizing the people by saying, hey, guess what? Your vote can't possibly matter because it's just going to get rigged anyway. That demoralization is what leads to allowing the communists to do what they want. So that's how they destabilize an area so that they can take over. So that's a tactic. And we know that because there was a KGB agent that went on record when he defected to the United States. He gave an interview and he talked about the destabilizing tactics of the KGB. So these are the things that we know. And I think that it's likely that that is a big factor. I don't know that it's such a big factor that only 1% are concerned about the social issues. I think that that number's way too low. But it does make sense that election integrity would be a major factor in people deciding not to participate.
So 1% is low. Okay. I mean, I'm going to agree with you there too, but I still think it is low. And you see that in the reverse statistics of just where Americans, even Catholics, Christians, stand on the abortion issue, right? Unfortunately, they're not as our faith and science teach us, right? So it's concerning as far as election, rigging. Yeah, I agree with you there too, Michael. I still don't think we've seen the full effects of the 2020 election and what that had on the psyche of the American voter. I think we've seen bits and pieces of it in 2022, the midterms, but actually further, like talk about Arizona, where they admitted 43% of the machines didn't work here in Republican areas on the day of the election. So people are rightfully doubtful, but that's why we're in such a vulnerable position. And that's why I think too, institutions that weren't using their weight to push state legislators to speak up for election integrity when we had a chance to really make a difference in some of these laws. We did make some progress. Other areas we didn't. It's a sad thing too, because I think we're going to be suffering. The voter has rightfully lost some confidence, but that's why it's all the more reason we have got to. Our best chance right now is what everybody's doing. It's too big to rig, whatever you want to call it. We've got to register our people. We've got to get them voting. Okay. Our turnout has been really good so far. Thanks be to God. Pennsylvania voter registrations here in Arizona, which is closed 2 days ago. But right. I mean, would you agree? We've got to, that's our best tactic right now.
And I think on top of that, we have to understand that in order to rig an election, you have to have a believable cover story to provide to show that the election was plausibly not stolen. With 2020, what you had was a system of you had a series of riots. You had the problem with the Wu flu. You had lockdowns. You had all kinds of things. The whole country was in turmoil, and you had a bunch of mail-in ballots and ballot boxes, and you created a system that made it possible to steal the election. And then at the same time, they consistently pulled Biden above Donald Trump consistently. And so when the numbers came in, it was easy to say, look, this is just the result of what we had been seeing in the polls all along. But because Trump is now polling way ahead of Harris, I mean, way ahead, if he's able to maintain those numbers and he's able to maintain them all the way up to the election, that little bump that we saw in the middle of the night on election night, that straight line that went straight up, is going to have to be about this big. And nobody, not even the Democrats, will believe that that wasn't a rig, that wasn't stolen. So I think that, too big to rig is one way to go. But at the same time, the polling numbers are backing it up. They simply don't have the cover story to sell it to the American people.
Cover story? Would the following be a cover story? Talking about the hurricanes. Again, there's different theories. Okay, weather manipulation, I don't know, all that stuff, right? Has that stuff existed for forever? Yeah, apparently it has, right? Okay, great. John Brennan even did a piece on it. I watched a clip from him from 3 years ago talking about, John Brennan's the former head of the CIA, right? Talking about their ability to use that, right? So it seems pretty legit. Was it involved here in these hurricanes? I don't know. But what we do know is that Western North Carolina, this is what I want to get into right now. This is important. This could affect the election. We're talking about actual voters. Article headline, Elon Musk slams FEMA. Don't you love Elon, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who is this guy? Where did he come from? Like,
he's Tony Stark. He is Iron Man.
Yeah. I mean, But did you see the interview he did with Tucker Carlson the other day?
I haven't seen the whole thing. I've seen clips.
It's great. Number one, it's great for busy people because you can just see they put the timestamps in there, so you can just go right to the topics that are really pertinent. He talks about the Pokes. He talks about, of course, it's on X. He talks about religion, which was very interesting. You should listen to that part where he talks about the need for faith in this country, and it talks about the fact that this is the last election in his humble estimation. Elon, the great mastermind who has 200 million people followers on X, says that if we don't win now, it's the last election. So this guy, Elon Musk, slams FEMA over Hurricane Helene response in North Carolina as SpaceX looks to set up new Starlinks. Interesting title. Federal Emergency Management, i.e. FEMA, claiming that it's blocking shipments of Starlink satellite internet deliveries in hurricane-ravaged North Carolina. What the heck? He's, quote, it's not merely failing to adequately help people in trouble, but is actively blocking citizens who try to help. Musk said that he had received a note from the SpaceX engineer who said the company has powered up 2 operating bases for choppers, but they've been stopped and not able to work effectively as they want to. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What is going on there?
Well, the conspiracy theorist in me wants to say that FEMA is directly and deliberately stymieing efforts in these areas because they lean heavily Republican. We do know that I believe it was in North Carolina, there was a recent motion by the Federal Elections Commission to allow the 13 counties that were devastated by Helene to move their polling places to a different location so that those people can vote. So thank God for that anyway. But whether it was weather manipulation or quite honestly, it's more likely
so you move the 13 locations. This is after the election or after the hurricane, right? Okay. So you move the locations, but guess what? Some people are dead. They're not going to vote.
Yeah.
And then travel.
230 so far.
I mean, yeah, like officially from the states.
But there are over 1,000 missing. Yeah.
Right. All right. So you got some people obviously who are passed away, but also the ability to travel. So, right. And also we're already talking about 68% of Christians who might not be vote or are disinterested in the election process. Right. It's a Christian area.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to be on your mind, a ballot or voting or trying to build a family, find your wife, get a job, get an income. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the added extra effort to get there to the polling location with all the traffic backup, the roads are messed up. I'd love to see the hard numbers on that. It hasn't been the first time the weather has really played a role in affecting elections, right? We saw that with some of these Iowa primaries with the snowstorms or whatever, right? So it has results, it has effects.
Sure. And tragedy and chaos, they do have very stark effects, which is why, we need to have these get out the vote drives, the early voting. The early voting is going to be very important, especially for people in Florida right now. There's something to be said for the ability to vote on a day that's not just election day, simply because you need to make sure that hey, people are able to get in there to vote in the event that something happens, that some tragedy like what happened in North Carolina, or some major event like a hurricane hitting Florida could disrupt the ability to vote. So early voting is very important. And I find myself laughing on the inside at the very idea because, 20 years ago, if you told me that we should have early voting, I would have laughed in your face and said, are you kidding? That's ripe for stealing elections. But now, given the fact that there are so many things, so many chaotic events that could stymie an election, it seems, well, maybe there's something to this. Maybe there's a reason why we should have early voting. And, I'm not entirely sold on the idea, but for right now, given the current climate, I think it's something that's important for the time being anyway.
100% agreed. Advisable. And parishes, priests, churches have got to be talking about registering timelines pretty much up in most states, but about voting. Charlie Kirk had a great piece today, video clip, just talking about how so many pastors, again, obviously you referenced, included Catholics in that group, that are just not really fully realizing the urgency of this election and why we need to be speaking up. Thanks. Brian Birch from Catholic Vote did a great job. He put out a list of all the anti-Catholic policies of Kamala Walt's regime, if they win, sent it to every single Catholic bishop in this country and said, guys, basically speak up, right? You got to be aware of what's going on. To Charlie's credit, what I loved is that he actually referenced a good example of a pastor. It happened to be a Catholic priest, and it also happened to be a Catholic priest very near me, Father Klein at St. Bernadette Catholic Church, right, who just gave a tremendous homily last week about just the abortion Prop 139 alone. And he's got signs all over the parish property and fully understands how we got to be speaking up. So there are pastors, we just need more of them, right? The same old, but we have to. I mean, we're up against so much right now.
You bet. And, in terms of going to the bishops and encouraging them, I keep thinking about
someone who knows, from someone who's not.
Yeah.
Yes, Michael. What?
The thing about the bishops is that the vast majority of them are Democrats. I hate to say it, but they are. And their loyalty is going to be to the Democrat Party. Why would they refuse to deny Holy Communion to these pro-abortion politicians? Well, because what they're trying to do is ensure that they're continuing to receive the funding for their pet projects like Catholic Relief Services and the Immigration Relief Services and Catholic Charities. Those agencies of the Catholic Church are getting billions of dollars from the federal government. And guess who's on the committee that's going to approve those funds? Those same pro-abortion politicians that they're not refusing communion to. So this relationship, which is transactional in nature, is preventing them from actually speaking out against the Democrat policies. And as my wife is always want to say, it's the people on the Nile feeding the crocodile so it will eat them last. And that's what's going to happen. And what Catholic Vote is pointing out here is, look, their anti-Catholic positions, yeah, maybe they're giving you money right now and they're feeding your cash cow projects at the moment, but that's not going to last. And ultimately, they are going to eat you. It's just a matter of when.
Absolutely. And I think there's also, even the ones that aren't Democrat are, okay, they're Catholic, conservative, whatever, bishops, obviously, we're talking about, but they seems like they have shifted to a point where they just want to, you'll hear literally direct quotes sometimes like, it's the job of the lady. Lady's got to do it. Lady's got to do that, right? It's the role of lady to speak up. Okay. I mean, yeah, we get that, but I think it's got to come back towards the middle, because they don't talk enough about some of the issues where they have a theological moral duty to speak up about these kind of topics, right? And they got to be more forthright. I mean, concrete case is thankfully our dear Arizona Catholic bishops spoke up about Prop 139. We Catholic for Catholic sent them a letter, had a bunch of people send them a letter asking them to. They did, but that should be something that just comes automatically, right? If they would have said something way back in January, so we asked them last November for a statement, and they, for whatever reason, dragged their feet till like January, came out with a statement about do not sign the petition. But by that time, there's already thousands of people that already signed it, right? So we got to be quicker. I'm not just talking about, if I'm the Democrat ones, bishops, or whatever they lean on, or they want the money, I don't know. But the ones that are good, I think we got to come back a little bit more about what that actually mean. Look at the examples of the Bishop von Graf in Munich, Germany, right? Minster, who spoke up so clearly about the dangers of Nazi socialism, right? So, but another topic, another day. I do want to get you briefly, because everyone's talking about in the Catholic world, Melania's new book. Yep. Melania. And specifically what she said about abortion. What were your thoughts, Michael, when you read that?
I want to read the quote of what she said. She framed the issue of abortion as an issue of personal freedom. She said, a woman's fundamental right to individual liberty, to her own life, grants her the authority to terminate her pregnancy. This is not only a departure from Trump's position, his position from 4 years ago, his position from 8 years ago, but it's a radical departure from everything that we have been promoting from the right side, from the Christian perspective, from the Republican perspective. It's a radical departure. On the other hand, she's just the latest in a string of first ladies who were married to pro-life presidents that were, and these first ladies were pro-choice. Nancy Reagan was pro-choice.
Right.
Barbara Bush was pro-choice. Laura Bush was pro-choice. So it's not surprising to see that Melania is cut from the same cloth, unfortunately. But she's not the one driving policy here. Donald Trump's positions and his statements on abortion are the ones that we need to focus on. And let me be clear: once the election's over and he comes back into the Oval Office, it is incumbent upon Catholics and pro-life leaders to really lean on him and say, look, we know that you said that you don't want to handle the life issue because it's been tossed to the states. But if we put forward a piece of pro-life legislation, we do fully expect you to support us in this effort. And they have to lean hard. They have to lean heavy. And we have a big job ahead of us to push for life all across the board. It's a huge job.
Completely agreed. People, you got to stay rational here. Or obviously, that what was said was not right. And by the way, I absolutely love Melania. I have a lot of respect for what she's gone through as a wife, supporting her husband who they tried to kill at least twice on the record. Okay. And everything she's gone through these past 8 years. So a lot of respect. Definitely disagree with her on that. I'm actually glad that she came out and said that. I mean, I think it's better it comes to the light. We discuss, people can get their opinions, and that's the first step to change. Actually have a conversation, dialogue, as they say. But it's at the end of the day, you as a pro-lifer are going to have a much easier time having a conversation with the GOP administration than you would the other side, right? It's the fact. Father Rippiger, we're voting to preserve the good. You focus. We're not voting for one man. We're voting to preserve the country, okay? Yep. That's the reality, the First, the Second Amendment, okay? So it's serious times. We're wrapping up. We're getting to the end of our thing, and we can even talk about Melania more in depth later next show. But I want to get to the social media post of the week. What do we got here, Charles? Who's going first? Throw up Michael's. Let's see what he's got for me.
This is a good one.
Guys are smarter than girls. You got some serious problems. That's what frustrates me. There are going to be some males in our society that will refuse to vote for a potential female president because they don't think females are smart enough to be president. We could line all those guys up and shoot them. They clearly don't understand the way the world works. Did I say that? Scratch that from the recording. I don't want the deans hearing that I said that.
He doesn't want the deans hearing that he said that. Yeah. So this is a professor from the University of Kansas. And I don't know what class he's teaching, but right there in the middle of class, he is promoting not just violence, but the execution of men who refuse to vote for Kamala Harris. This kind of violent rhetoric we've come to expect it from the left, but when they sit there and they say, they clutch their pearls anytime somebody supports the Second Amendment, right to bear arms, and they say, oh, you're such a violent person and you hate children and blah, blah. But this man is literally talking about shooting people that won't vote for Kamala Harris which is an act of political violence. So therefore, what he said could properly be termed political terrorism. And he should be fired from his position, if not tried for a hate crime. But the fact here is that the left is absolutely and totally unhinged, and their rhetoric is actually violent, whereas what they impugn upon the people on the right is, well, it's implied violence. So there's a huge disconnect between the two sides, and we have to finally recognize, look, these people, the ones on the left, hate us, they hate America, and they will kill you in order to get what they want.
Evil is unhinged. Left is unhinged. Evil is unhinged. Evil, in essence, is irrationality, right? Yep. It does not make sense to reject God for all eternity, right? It's not logical. How could you reject truth, goodness, and beauty? And you see that, as you just said, in the concrete expression of the left's the facility at which they turn to violence. It's not just the professor in Kansas. It's Saturday Night Live just a couple weeks ago made a joke about the assassination of President Trump. Okay, that's crazy town. Okay, why? We know why they're probably doing that. They want that. They want that man dead. It's sick. And it's, again, like you always say so clearly, Michael, this also is a very common product of atheist Marxism, the way they resort to violence when they need to, when they're not getting their way, like the little kids. Serious stuff. Throw my X post on the week there. Election integrity lawyer from the Republican Party, Arizona, Corey Langhofer, has resigned. That means that 3 days before mail-in ballots, this was last week, are dropping in Arizona. AZGOP and Team Trump don't have a lawyer to fight election fraud, okay? Why did he resign? He resigned today, actually, because he was unwilling to file a lawsuit over, this is the key number, because even Elon Musk has talked about this, 218,000 unconfirmed U.S. citizen illegal alien voters that Adrian Fontes, Democrat, Catholic in name, the anti-Trump Democrat Secretary of State, has refused to remove from the voter rolls. It's worth noting that Langhofer served as a delegation for Mitt Romney, blah, blah, blah. In other words, he's a rhino. Okay. That is the X post. 218,000. Okay. When your friends tell you that you're too big to rig, what are you talking about? Election, but whatever. Give them hard numbers. The first question you ask when they say, come on, your election was stolen, whatever, and you don't have any evidence, ask them to define for you what they need my evidence. What do they want? What is their definition of evidence? Okay. Let them say what they say. But when you say, you respond, say 218,000 voters who Gina Sabota of AZGOP, she's the chairwoman here, has been fighting to get our voter rolls cleaned up. And they finally come out and admit that they have 218,000 who they cannot prove if they are U.S. citizens. We have this crazy law, Michael, here in Arizona, I think other states as well, where if you can't prove that you are a citizen of the United States, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news, you can vote in the federal election. They call it good news. The bad news is you can't vote in Arizona, or the other way around. Depends on how you look at it, right? But it's crazy town that you can have this, and that's a serious thing that we are up against right now as we scramble to register voters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wonder about this particular individual. He knew that this was the kind of thing that he was going to be, that he was hired to do, that he was hired to perform this particular task. That's right. For him to quit because he's feigning some sort of righteous indignation. But the fact of the matter is, he waited until this last minute because he knew that that was the best way to disrupt the best efforts of Trump's side to ensure election integrity. So I think that Trump team needs to hire a new lawyer very quickly to file that particular petition to get it done. It'll take a little bit of time, but they need to, Operation Warp Speed, right? They need to really move swiftly to get this done.
We also got to pray for our attorneys. I mean, these guys, even the ones that are noble-hearted and have gone to bat for us, they go through so much to take up one of these election integrity cases. the amount of pressure that they get from the left to back down, step away, is intense, right? So there will be cases filed. We already know that. They've already been talking about that. So they're going to need our prayers to stand strong and have a lot of clarity in mind as they present their different positions, right? We have reached the end of our show. It is the Feast Day of Our Lady of Champion. A lot of stuff going on in the world. I'm saying it right now. You all need to attend tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. We are doing a special live streamed rosary with Bishop Strickland, specifically to pray for what's going on in our country with the Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Milton, Category 5. We'll be hitting Florida very soon. And we're going to, ask Our Lady of Champion for special intercession for protection against these natural disasters, right? And just for the election in general. So really want to invite you to join if you can. And don't forget your t-shirts, everyone. I'm wearing the St. Michael's t-shirt. This is like making the rounds. People are loving these. They got yard signs going up everywhere. And just kind of a great show of faith and love of country as you walk around in these crucial last weeks before Election Day. Final comments, Michael?
No, I just completely agree with everything you said.
That's why we love you, man. It's it's clear. Keep the focus. Get people. It's too late to register now. Basically, make sure that people vote. Spread the word. Pass out voter guides. Talk to people. Encourage pastors to use the platforms that they have to speak up. Pray for America, and you can start by doing so at 8 p.m. tonight on our live stream rosary. This is Catholic Champion Show. We will see you next week. God bless.